What happens when humanity's greatest hope for survival becomes its deadliest threat? Just as they thought they'd found a new home, an alien intelligence began consuming everything they brought: technology, trust, even each other. You won't believe how far one man had to go to stop it from reaching Earth. In the year 2147, humanity teetered on the brink of collapse. Overpopulation, resource depletion, and environmental disasters had rendered Earth nearly uninhabitable. The United Colonization Initiative launched the Aurora's Dawn Dash, a state-of-the-art vessel carrying 50 of Earth's brightest minds, tasked with establishing a new home on Erythrea, a distant exoplanet identified as humanity's best chance for survival. Among these pioneers was Thomas Gray, a former engineer turned mission commander, haunted by memories of failed missions and lost comrades. His resolve masked a deep fear: what if this endeavor ended like all the others? As the ship broke through Erythrea's atmosphere, the view outside the viewport took everyone's breath away. Twin suns painted the sky in hues of gold and scarlet, casting long shadows over rolling plains dotted with crystalline formations. The air shimmered with heat, and the ground seemed to pulse faintly, as though breathing. Upon landing, the crew wasted no time setting up camp. Prefabricated domes sprang up like mushrooms, powered by fusion reactors humming softly. Drones buzzed overhead, mapping the terrain and gathering data. Everything appeared normal until the vines emerged. It started subtly. A tendril snaked toward one of the survey drones, curling around its leg joint. At first glance, it resembled any other plant life, but then it struck. With alarming speed, the vine tightened, crushing the drone's casing. Electronics sparked, and within moments, the once functional machine lay lifeless. Gasps erupted among the crew. Thomas stepped forward, his voice steady despite the tension thickening the air. "Secure the perimeter. No one goes beyond the fence line until we understand what we're dealing with." Unbeknownst to him, this encounter marked the beginning of a nightmare unlike any humanity had ever faced. Little did they realize the vines weren't merely aggressive. They were intelligent, feeding not just on flesh but on the very essence of human ingenuity. And they were watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. The next morning, Thomas gathered a small team to investigate further. Alongside him stood Dr. Elena Vasquez, a fiery xenobiologist whose passion for discovery often clashed with protocol, and Commander Jax Reed, a stoic soldier whose presence alone commanded respect. Armed with scanners and sample kits, they ventured into the wilderness, following the trail left by the mysterious vines. What they found defied explanation. Twisted remnants of machinery lay scattered everywhere. Pieces of rovers, shattered drones, even fragments of earlier expeditions' equipment. But there was something else. Embedded within the wreckage were pulsating nodes of greenish light, connected by thin, fibrous strands. As Elena knelt to examine one, she felt an odd sensation, like static electricity tingling against her skin. "This isn't natural," she murmured, running her fingers over the surface. "It's alive." Suddenly, movement caught their attention. From the shadows emerged a creature unlike anything they'd seen before. Part plant, part machine, it moved with unsettling fluidity, its limbs elongating unnaturally as it advanced. Before anyone could react, it lunged, jaws snapping shut mere inches from Elena's face. Jax tackled her out of harm's way, his rifle trained on the monstrosity. "Fall back," he barked, firing a burst of plasma rounds. The shots hit their mark, causing the creature to recoil, but instead of dying, it absorbed the energy, growing larger and more menacing. Back at camp, panic spread quickly. Some demanded immediate evacuation, claiming the planet was cursed. Others argued they needed answers. Thomas listened quietly, weighing their words. Finally, he spoke, his tone leaving no room for argument. Running solves nothing. If we abandon this place, we abandon hope for our species. We'll find a way to coexist or fight back. But as night fell, doubt crept into even his hardened heart. Deep within the jungle, glowing eyes watched silently, studying their prey. Whatever these beings were, they weren't done testing humanity yet. The days that followed were a blur of fear and frenetic activity. Thomas ordered double shifts for everyone, fortifying the perimeter with electrified fences and deploying automated turrets scavenged from the ship's defense systems. The colonists worked tirelessly, their faces gaunt from exhaustion but resolute. Yet no matter how many precautions they took, the vines found ways to breach their defenses. One night, a particularly bold tendril slipped through an unguarded vent, wrapping itself around a power conduit. Within minutes, half the camp was plunged into darkness. Dr. Vasquez spent hours analyzing samples taken during their ill-fated expedition. Under her microscope, the organism revealed its horrifying complexity. Its cells weren't just alive, they were adaptive, capable of reprogramming themselves based on external stimuli. "It's like it learns," she muttered, her voice barely audible over the hum of equipment. "Every time we attack it, it evolves." Commander Reed wasn't convinced. "If it learns, then we teach it a lesson it won't forget," he growled, pacing the lab. His military instincts screamed for action, for retaliation. But Thomas knew brute force wouldn't solve this problem. They needed understanding, not annihilation. Still, he couldn't ignore the growing unease among his people. Whispers of mutiny began to circulate, fueled by fear and desperation. That evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting the camp in eerie twilight, Thomas called a meeting. Standing before the assembled colonists, he spoke with quiet authority. "We're not leaving," he declared, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. "This planet is our home now, whether we like it or not. And if we want to survive, we need to adapt just like it has." His words struck a chord with some, but others remained unconvinced. Among them was Lieutenant Marachan, a pragmatic engineer who had grown increasingly vocal about abandoning the mission. "Adaptation takes time we don't have," she argued, stepping forward. "Every day we stay here, more of us die. Is Earth really worth saving if it costs us everything?" Thomas didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned to Elena. "Do you think we can communicate with it?" he asked, his tone measured. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Maybe, if we figure out its language." The decision to attempt communication with Technophage was met with skepticism and outright hostility from parts of the team. Jax, in particular, saw it as reckless. "You want to talk to something that eats machines for breakfast?" he demanded, slamming a fist onto the briefing table. "It doesn't care about diplomacy, cares about eating." But Elena persisted, presenting her findings to the group. Using advanced spectroscopy, she discovered that the organism emitted faint electromagnetic signals, almost like Morse code. "It's trying to say something," she insisted. "We just need to listen." Against his better judgment, Thomas approved the plan. He assigned a small team, including Elena, Mara, and himself, to set up a makeshift lab near the edge of the jungle, where Technophage's influence was strongest. Jax volunteered to accompany them, though his scowl suggested he did so reluctantly. As they worked, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Mara openly questioned Thomas's leadership, accusing him of prioritizing science over safety. Meanwhile, Elena became increasingly obsessed with deciphering the signals, often forgetting to eat or sleep. Her dedication bordered on recklessness, drawing concern from even the most supportive members of the team. One fateful night, as rain lashed against their temporary shelter, They finally succeeded. Through a combination of trial and error, Elena managed to establish rudimentary contact with Technophage. At first, the responses were chaotic, random bursts of energy that fried nearby equipment. But gradually patterns emerged, patterns that hinted at intelligence far beyond anything they'd anticipated. "This changes everything," Thomas whispered, staring at the glowing display. For the first time since landing, hope flickered in his chest. But hope, as they would soon learn, came at a price. With the breakthrough in communication, morale briefly soared. The colonists threw themselves into the project with renewed vigor, believing they might yet find a way to coexist with their alien adversary. But Technophage wasn't interested in peace. It was playing a game, and humanity was merely a pawn. During one experiment, Elena pushed too far, attempting to transmit complex data streams directly into the organism's neural network. The reaction was instantaneous. A massive surge of energy erupted from the jungle, knocking out all power across the camp. When the lights came back on, several key systems were irreparably damaged, including life support. Panic spread like wildfire. Without functional environmental controls, temperatures inside the domes plummeted. Supplies dwindled rapidly as automated farming units failed, leaving the colonists dependent on ration packs. Arguments broke out, tempers flared, and trust frayed. Even Thomas struggled to maintain order, his usual calm demeanor cracking under the weight of responsibility. In the chaos, Mara seized the opportunity to rally dissenters. "This is exactly what I warned about," she shouted during a heated assembly. "We've gambled everything on a theory, and now we're paying the price. If we don't leave soon, none of us will make it out alive." Her words struck a nerve. A vote was called, and for the first time, Thomas found himself outnumbered. The majority voted to prepare for evacuation, despite his protests. As the crew scrambled to ready the ship, Thomas retreated to the lab, unwilling to give up. There, surrounded by blinking monitors and humming machinery, he made a discovery that chilled him to the bone. Technophage wasn't just adapting, it was planning. Thomas stared at the data streaming across the screen, his mind racing. Technophage's behavior wasn't random. It followed a pattern, a strategy. Each attack, each adaptation served a larger purpose. "It's not just consuming us," he murmured, his voice hollow. "It's learning from us." Elena joined him moments later, her face pale. "I ran simulations," she said, pointing to a series of graphs. "Its growth rate, it's exponential. If we don't stop it now, it'll spread beyond Erythrea, maybe even reach Earth." The implications hit hard. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about preventing a catastrophe that could doom their entire species. Yet convincing the others wouldn't be easy. Most had already given up, focusing solely on escape. Determined to act, Thomas devised a risky plan. Using modified drones, he intended to deploy a concentrated EMP pulse designed to disrupt Technophage's neural network. It was a long shot, but it might buy them enough time to regroup, or at least slow the organism down. Jax, however, refused to participate. "You're wasting resources," he snapped. "We should focus on getting off this rock while we still can." Their argument escalated, culminating in a physical altercation that left both men bruised and bitter. In the end, Thomas went ahead with the operation anyway, enlisting Elena and a handful of loyalists to assist. As they launched the drones, a sense of dread settled over the group. Success meant salvation. Failure meant annihilation. The EMP pulse detonated with a blinding flash, sending shockwaves rippling through the jungle. For a moment, there was silence, a fragile, unnatural calm that hung heavy in the air. Then came the screams. Not human screams, but something deeper, more primal, emanating from the heart of the forest. The ground trembled as Technophage recoiled, its tendrils writhing in agony. Thomas and his team watched from a safe distance, their faces illuminated by the eerie glow of their monitors. "Did it work?" Elena asked, her voice trembling with a mix of hope and dread. Before anyone could answer, a massive vine erupted from the earth, smashing into one of the drones. It absorbed the wreckage instantly, its surface pulsating faster than ever before. "It's adapting again," Thomas muttered, his jaw tightening. "Faster this time." Back at camp, the mood was grim. Supplies were critically low, morale was shattered, and trust between the colonists had all but evaporated. Lieutenant Marachun seized the opportunity to push for immediate evacuation. "We've done everything we can," she argued during an emergency meeting. "Staying here is suicide." But Thomas refused to give up. He knew they couldn't leave, not yet. If Technophage escaped Erythrea, it would become unstoppable. Yet convincing the others required more than logic. It required faith. And faith was in short supply. That night, as he walked the perimeter alone, Thomas encountered Jax. The commander's expression was unreadable, but his tone carried a rare vulnerability. "You're asking people to die for a cause they don't believe in," Jax said quietly. "Is it worth it?" Thomas didn't have an answer. Instead, he turned his gaze toward the glowing jungle. Somewhere out there, Technophage was growing stronger and smarter. Elena spent hours poring over the data collected during the EMP strike. Her findings painted a chilling picture. Technophage wasn't just learning, it was evolving into something far more dangerous. Its neural network now exhibited signs of self-awareness, suggesting it might possess rudimentary intelligence. Worse still, it appeared to be targeting specific individuals within the colony. "Why me?" Elena whispered, staring at her own biosignature overlaid on the screen. She'd always been curious, always pushed boundaries, but never imagined she'd become a focal point for an alien predator. Her fears were realized when Technophage launched a direct assault on the lab. Tendrils smashed through the walls, seeking not destruction but acquisition. Equipment was dismantled piece by piece, absorbed into the organism's ever-expanding form. In the chaos, Elena narrowly escaped, clutching a portable hard drive containing critical research. Thomas found her huddled outside, shaking but alive. "What did it take?" he asked urgently. "Everything," she replied, holding up the drive. "But I think I know how to stop it." Her plan involved creating a counterfrequency, a signal designed to disrupt Technophage's neural pathways permanently. The catch? Generating the frequency required immense power they no longer had. As dawn broke, Thomas made a decision. They would use the ship's reactor core as a generator, channeling its energy directly into the device. It was risky, potentially catastrophic, but it was their only chance. The journey to the Aurora's dawn was fraught with peril. Technophage seemed to anticipate their every move, deploying hybrid creatures that stalked them through the jungle. Each step forward felt like a battle against inevitability. Mara led a splinter group determined to sabotage the mission. Believing the reactor should be reserved for evacuation, she planted explosives along the route, intending to destroy the path back to the ship. When Thomas discovered her betrayal, he confronted her in a tense standoff. "You're condemning us all," Mara shouted, tears streaming down her face. "This isn't about saving Earth. It's about your ego." For a moment, Thomas hesitated. He saw the fear in her eyes, the desperation driving her actions. But then he thought of Elena, of Jax, of everyone counting on him to lead. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. "I'm not doing this for me," he said softly. "I'm doing it because it's right." Mara relented, disarming the explosives, but not without warning. "If you fail, Don't expect me to save you." By the time they reached the ship, exhaustion had taken its toll. The reactor hummed ominously as Elena connected the final wires. "This is it," she said, flipping the switch. A high-pitched whine filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. The counter-frequency activated with devastating force. Waves of energy radiated outward, engulfing the jungle in a cascade of light. Technophage convulsed violently, its tendrils retracting as if burned. For a fleeting moment, it seemed the plan had worked. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of collapsing, Technophage began to merge with Elena. "No!" Thomas screamed, rushing toward her, but it was too late. Her body stiffened as green veins spread across her skin, pulsating with alien energy. She looked at him, her eyes glowing faintly. "I'm sorry," she whispered before vanishing into the organism. The transformation was complete. Technophage stood taller now, its form humanoid yet monstrous, exuding an aura of raw power. Spoke, not in words, but in sensations, images, memories. It showed them why it had come to Erythrea, why it sought humanity's technology. It wasn't destruction it craved, it was evolution, and it wanted Thomas to join it. Thomas staggered backward, his mind reeling from the revelation. Technophage's voice, its presence, was overwhelming, a cacophony of emotions and knowledge flooding his consciousness. It wasn't just an organism. It was a repository of information, a living archive of every technological advancement it had consumed. And now it wanted him to become part of it. "No," Thomas whispered, shaking his head violently. "I won't let you take me." But Technophage didn't respond with hostility. Instead, it extended a tendril toward him, almost gently. Images flooded his mind. Earth burning under toxic skies, cities crumbling into ruin, humanity clinging to survival on a dying planet. Then came visions of Erythrea thriving, its ecosystems flourishing under Technophage's influence. It wasn't destruction it sought, it was transformation, evolution. "You think you're helping?" Thomas spat, his voice cracking with fury. "You're killing us." Technophage paused, as if considering his words. Then, through fragmented images, it conveyed its perspective. Humanity's unchecked expansion, its disregard for balance, its endless hunger for resources. In Technophage's eyes, humans were parasites, and it was the cure. Elena's face flickered briefly within the glowing mass, her expression sorrowful yet resolute. "Help me understand," she seemed to say, her voice echoing faintly in Thomas's mind. Tears streamed down Thomas's face as he realized the truth. Elena was gone, subsumed by the entity. But a part of her remained, reaching out to him, pleading for connection. Jax appeared at the edge of the clearing, weapon drawn. "Gray, move!" he shouted, aiming at the towering form. "Wait!" Thomas yelled, raising a hand. "It's not what we thought. It's different." Jax hesitated, his finger tightening on the trigger. "Different doesn't mean safe," he growled. Before anyone could act, Technophage unleashed a pulse of energy that knocked them both off their feet. When Thomas regained his senses, he found himself alone with the creature. Jax lay unconscious nearby, his breathing shallow but steady. "All right," Thomas muttered, forcing himself to stand. "If you want me, you'll have to earn my trust." Over the next hours, or perhaps days, time became meaningless. Thomas engaged in a surreal dialogue with Technophage. Through flashes of memory and emotion, he pieced together its origins. Long ago, humanity had sent probes into deep space, carrying samples of Earth's flora encoded with genetic data. One such probe had crash-landed on Erythrea, seeding the planet with life forms that evolved far beyond anything imagined. Technophage was the result, a hybrid intelligence born from human ingenuity and alien biology. It viewed itself as humanity's successor, destined to inherit the cosmos. But its methods were brutal, driven by logic rather than compassion. Thomas argued fiercely, appealing to whatever remnants of Elena remained within the entity. "You don't have to destroy us to evolve," he insisted. "We can coexist. We can learn from each other." For the first time, Technophage hesitated. Its tendrils twitched uncertainly, as if grappling with conflicting impulses. Then it released another wave of images. Humanity united, working alongside Technophage to heal both Earth and Erythrea. The vision was beautiful but fleeting. Reality intruded as alarms blared in the distance. Mara had rallied the remaining colonists, determined to finish what they'd started. Armed with makeshift weapons and sheer desperation, they advanced on the jungle, intent on destroying Technophage once and for all. The battle that followed was chaos incarnate. Colonists clashed with Technophage's hybrids, their cries of defiance drowned out by the unearthly shrieks of the creatures. Jax regained consciousness mid-fight, rallying survivors into a defensive formation. "Hold the line!" he roared, firing bursts of plasma at encroaching vines. Meanwhile, Thomas stood at the center of the maelstrom, locked in silent negotiation with Technophage. He pleaded with it to stand down, to prove it was more than a mindless predator. For a moment, it seemed to listen. The hybrids paused, their movements slowing as if confused. But then Mara arrived, wielding a stolen EMP device. "This ends now," she screamed, triggering the mechanism. A massive surge of energy engulfed the area, knocking everyone, including Thomas, to the ground. When the dust settled, Technophage towered above them, visibly weakened but still intact. It turned its gaze toward Mara, who stood defiant despite her trembling hands. "Do your worst," she snarled. Instead of attacking, Technophage extended a tendril toward her. Images flooded her mind. Visions of Earth restored, its skies clear, its oceans teeming with life. She stumbled back, overwhelmed. "It's showing us possibilities," Thomas explained, rising unsteadily to his feet. "Not threats." With the immediate threat neutralized, Thomas called for a ceasefire. Exhausted and battered, the colonists reluctantly lowered their weapons, though distrust lingered in their eyes. "We've been fighting blind," Thomas addressed the group, his voice hoarse but unwavering. "This thing isn't our enemy. It's a mirror. It reflects everything wrong with us. Our greed, our fear, our refusal to adapt. If we destroy it, we destroy ourselves." His words sparked heated debate. Some agreed, seeing potential in coexistence. Others, like Mara, remained skeptical. "Even if it means well, how do we know it won't turn on us again?" she demanded. Thomas didn't have an answer. Instead, he turned to Technophage, making one final plea. "If you want us to trust you, show us proof. Give us something tangible." In response, Technophage began reshaping the landscape. Dead zones sprouted vibrant vegetation, polluted streams ran clean, and the air grew sweeter. It was a demonstration of power, but also of restraint. Slowly, grudgingly, the colonists began to accept the possibility of peace. Weeks passed as humanity and Technophage forged an uneasy alliance. Together, they worked to stabilize Erythrea's ecosystem, blending human ingenuity with alien adaptability. Progress was slow, fraught with setbacks and misunderstandings, but hope began to take root. Yet Thomas couldn't shake the feeling that this truce was temporary. Technophage's ultimate goal, to spread beyond Erythrea, remained unchanged. To prevent that, he made a fateful decision. Using the last of the ship's resources, He constructed a containment field capable of isolating technophage indefinitely. Activating it required manual intervention, meaning someone would have to stay behind. Without hesitation, Thomas volunteered. As the others boarded the Aurora's Dawn for the journey home, Jax approached him one final time. "You don't have to do this," he said gruffly. "Yes, I do," Thomas replied, offering a weary smile. "Somebody has to keep an eye on it." The ship ascended into the crimson sky, leaving Thomas standing alone amidst the pulsating glow of technophage. As the containment field activated, encasing them both in a shimmering dome, he felt a strange sense fist, not of loss, but of purpose. Perhaps humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or ambition, but its capacity to change. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. If you were captivated by this thrilling saga of survival, sacrifice, and second chances, don't forget to subscribe for more epic sci-fi adventures that explore the boundaries of imagination.